What's going on, everybody? My name is Tenebris Infinite, and welcome back to part 3 of getting ready for base building here in Generation Zero. We're going over how to farm all of the resources here in the game, and today we're coming at you with the final part where we're going to be going over how to gather tungsten, titanium, and aluminum. The last three, which are the rare resources of the game. These are the easiest to explain, but by far the hardest to obtain. So today I'll cover two methods of obtaining these rare resources in the game, and the two methods that I utilize to farm them. The first method is active farming, so going around the map and farming up apocalypse machines specifically for these resources. And then the second is going off and farming a bunch of rivals for experimental weapons that then I will recycle and turn into these rare resources. Now here on the map, I've circled in red all of the locations that I use as hotspots to farm apocalypse machines on the mainland. These areas have kind of a couple factors to them, and you'll usually only see a few apocalypse machines at a time. Really, farming apocalypse machines on the mainland is not advised, but if you don't have the money for Alpine Unrest, then definitely these are the locations that you want to hit up on the map in order to find yourself apocalypse hunters, runners, tanks, and harvesters. The runners and hunters spawn far more frequently than the tanks and harvesters do, but when the tanks and harvesters do spawn, you really want to jump on the opportunity and kill them as long as you are not farming rivals currently. Now, I've gone through the map here and given each of these circles a number corresponding to how often you're going to see apocalypse machines at these locations. So, starting off with 1 being the most frequent and 6 being the least frequent, you could see that kind of the northern region of the map and then the southern coast will have the most apocalypse machine spawns that you'll find. And then in the central farmlands, kind of infrequently, you'll be able to find 1 or 2 apocalypse machines just kind of wandering around that general area. Really though, I cannot understate this. You're fighting an uphill battle if you're only going to be farming on the mainland, because you're going to be looking for rare machine spawns, and then on top of that, you're going to be looking for rare resources on top of those rare machine spawns, so you're kind of just asking for a hard time. But luckily, when you do fight apocalypse machines, the primary resources you will find will be aluminium and titanium. Those two will drop far more commonly than any sort of tungsten will. Now, for aluminum, I don't think we'll see too much use for it, unless if we put, like, aluminum plating into various structural things that we're going to build for base building. But definitely I can see us using tons of titanium along the way as we build our bases. I'm kind of wondering, how many of you dudes say aluminum, and how many of you dudes say aluminium? Sound off in the comments down below. Now, you're faced with a bit of a tough call if you don't own Alpine Unrest. Do you farm as many apocalypse machines as you can in order to get those rare resources, or do you leave those apocalypse machines so that they can become rivals, so that you'll have higher odds of getting schematics and getting experimental weapons from them? That's kind of a call that you have to make personally. The option I go with is option 3, and I just farm my apocalypse machines off on Hempfell Island. Now, there are so many spots across the island that it's pretty ridiculous, and if I had to give a number to all of these spots, they'd all be number 1, because all of them spawn apocalypse tanks and harvesters and hunters and all of that stuff 100% of the time, because the whole island is just crawling with apocalypse machines. So instead, what I've done is I've circled the spots where tanks and harvesters spawn at specifically, because those dudes will be offering you the most tungsten in terms of your drops. Now, the only inherent downside to farming off on Himfell Island is that it can be pretty resource intensive. So, in the last video, I gave you dudes a method to farming tons of advanced medkits that will help you with farming thread, but you probably want to keep a healthy portion of advanced medkits so that way you can come off to Himfell Island and just kind of burn them off, because you go through quite a bit of them when you go through a decent farming session here on the island. But honestly, that's not even really a downside. You can farm tons of tungsten here on the island, and even though it's a rare resource, and even though you are still battling a little bit of RNG in order to get it, you at least have the surplus amount of machines to do enough RNG rolls to get a decent portion of tungsten, especially if you put like an entire week worth of focus into Alpine. You're going to walk out with way more tungsten than you'll ever need until base building comes. Now, for the next portion of the video, we're going to talk about recycling experimental weapons in order to get the tungsten that you need specifically, but then also other resources along the way too. So my dudes, these are the resources that I've been... Resources? So, my dudes, these are the guns that I've been stockpiling since January. So, it's been a few months of me stockpiling weapons, and it's not like I've had the greatest returns on guns, but it's been alright, it's been easy going. So, I'm really curious how many resources I'm actually going to get here after this big recycling session. So it wasn't too bad, you know, we got a lot of adhesive. Plastic is something that we're in absolute surplus of coming the end of this week. So if you ever need a lot of plastic, just follow this route exactly and you'll be up to your knees in it. But the other thing too that I think is pretty awesome is we got a really good return on our titanium and also our tungsten, at least relative to the amount of guns that we had to put in. For some people, it might feel a little bit worthless getting these amount of resources from that amount of guns. But personally, to me, I think that the more the better when it comes to resources here in Generation 0. So there we go, we're actually sitting pretty good with a number of our resources. Like our steel, we're up to the 600 mark. Adhesive, we're ballpark there. Plastic, we've got way too much of. But for the other resources, I'm gonna have to put in my own serious grind in order to get these all up to 600 before resistance drops later on this month. But, my dudes, that wraps up all of the resources here in Generation 0 and how I personally farm all of them. My methods are tried and true for myself. Hopefully they can help you dudes. The nice thing is now that we're up to snuff with all of the resources in the game, whenever a new resource gets added, I'll be able to cover it really easily on my channel here. So I'm going to have a playlist for farming resources here in Generation 0 on my channel, and you dudes might want to save that playlist just in case if we get anything new in the future. But for now, as always, I've been Tenebris, and as always, you've been awesome. Thank you so much for watching this series, and again, hopefully you're stoked for base building here in Generation 0, and hopefully I've been able to help you get ready. But, cheers folks, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.